Hello everyone, welcome back. I hope your day is starting off just great. Let me introduce the video here with this in the backdrop. This is a picture of Dungeon Provincial Park in Newfoundland, shared by Lisa in the I Choose Canada group. She lives in Newfoundland. I wonder if she is one of the people. Can you see the people standing on the ridge of this Dungeon Gorge? In this video, I just want to give you a flavor for what's happening in the world, kind of the big story that's unfolding before us, which is spun in different ways depending what media you absorb. The big story in the world really is what's happening between the two countries that these two guys lead. And right now, let me paint a picture of what I think is going through the minds of these two leaders. One of them believes that he's winning a trade war that he started to make America great again. The other guy is thinking, I'm so glad that the American people elected this guy because this is making my job so much easier. In an article here on Yahoo Finance, the headline is, Trump's trade war with China is backfiring spectacularly. And they titled this correctly. Yes, Trump's trade war with China. Before Trump stupidly launched a trade war with the whole world, including China, there really wasn't a war between the two countries. There was some trade tensions in certain sectors, but the United States and China were big trading partners. The article reads, Donald Trump's tariff war with China is backfiring, with Beijing moving to cut deals with the rest of the world instead. A New York Times analysis found that China is offsetting its decline in exports to the United States with breathtaking speed by dramatically increasing exports to dozens of other nations. Between the third quarter of 2024 and 2025, when Trump and Beijing imposed reciprocal tariffs on each other, remember that Donald Trump started the trade war, China's trade with the United States fell roughly $38 billion worth. However, over the same period, Chinese exports to Hong Kong increased 12 billion, to Vietnam increased 11 billion, to Thailand increased 5 billion, and to the European Union exports increased 15 billion, just to name a few regions in the world. And the first impression that many of us get when we read these articles and we read these headlines is that, well, the United States has started this trade war against China, and China has just pivoted and is increasing trade with other countries. We tend to think that they've reacted to what the United States has done, but it's a little bit different than that. This graph is taken from a recent New York Times article, reported on November 3rd with the headline, What Trade War? China export juggernaut marches on. And it basically shows the makeup of China's global exports. And in this article, they titled this graph, China's global exports continue to grow despite Trump's efforts. Because most of the US media, they're so self-absorbed and so infatuated with themselves, that feeling that they're the center of the universe, that China must be reacting to the United States. And despite Trump's efforts, they're doing this. Well, let me paint a different picture for you. China has their own agenda, and it's in this graph. So this title is incorrect. Let me just explain what's happening here. Since 2000, China has increased its exports. Their economy has been growing, and they've been increasing their exports to everyone in the world. That's the green bar on this graph. Rest of the world. Look how much China has increased their trade with the rest of the world. And then look at the purple there. That's the United States. China has lots of different customers. China trades with everyone. So if the United States, the center of the universe, decides they want to impose tariffs on Chinese imports, and then the United States imports a little bit less from China, 38 billion less in the first quarter of 2025, you look at this chart here, well, the purple line dips down just a little bit, but look at the green line. Americans, you are so self-absorbed to think that you're the biggest player and you're controlling the direction of China. To an observer from any other country in the world, it's just laughable reading your media. Look at this graph and look at the difference of the size of the green wedge, which is the rest of the world, and the tiny little sliver that's the United States. And try and understand that the actions that the US makes right now are really not going to change the trajectory for China. China is marching forward as it has for decades. And even when you go on to read some of the reporting in these articles, we're back on the Yahoo Finance article here. The Times notes that this pivot was not solely a reaction to Trump's tariffs. China has been seeking trade relationships beyond the US for years in pursuit of greater global economic dominance. There's the inflammatory rhetoric again. It must be that those Chinese are seeking to pursue greater global economic dominance at the expense of the United States. They must have a nefarious plan. China does have a plan. Their plan is they're open for business with everyone on earth, and their economy is growing faster than the US economy. And they're trading with the rest of the world more than the United States, and they've been doing that for decades. This is an illustration taken from the Government of Canada 2025 budget that was just released a couple of days ago. The Government of Canada budget. And they put this as an illustration in the budget to highlight the importance of Asia and how Canada is now trying to pivot some of its trade to Asia and increase its trade with Asia. And they show some reasons why. Asia has 4 billion consumers in the Indo-Pacific is what they call it. 4 billion people live in this area here. And do you know your geography? Can you tell what the countries are here? You've got China right here. You've got India right here. You've got Japan, southeastern Indo-Pacific countries. There's 4 billion people there. That's 10 times as many people as live in the United States. This region will be home to 2/3 of the global middle class by 2030. Think about that. This is the fastest emerging market on earth. And China is increasing its trade with everyone here, including Australia, which, I'm sorry, Aussies, your island is behind my head. But I have to put my head somewhere. $72 billion is the amount of Canadian exports to this region in 2024. And our country hopes to increase that. But make no mistake, China is a global trading nation. They are actively trading with everyone on earth. They're dominant in this region, and they'll just continue to increase their trade with everyone on earth, regardless of what the United States does. China is not just responding to or setting their trade policies or pivoting in reaction to what the guy on the left here tweets in the morning. They are on a steady path of growth and trade expansion that's been happening for decades. They're not trying to do this so they can have global trade dominance. They're doing this because there's 1 billion people that live there that produce products that they want to sell to the rest of the world. They're entrepreneurs and they're ready to trade with the whole world. And if the United States doesn't want to be part of that, well, the US represents about 4% of the world's population and a market that's not growing at the speed that the rest of the world is. In fact, the US is facing some headwinds in their future. Reported here on Yahoo Finance just recently, the United States hits 38 trillion in debt after the fastest accumulation of 1 trillion outside the pandemic. And I mentioned this in the previous videos, but I have to mention it again because these numbers are really shocking. In the midst of a federal government shutdown, the US government's gross national debt surpassed 38 trillion on Wednesday. This article is written on October 23rd, a record number that highlights the accelerated accumulation of debt on America's balance sheet. It's also the fastest accumulation of $1 trillion in debt outside the COVID-19 pandemic. The US hit 37 trillion in gross national debt in August, 3 months ago. The US has added $1 trillion in debt in the past 3 months. And of course, with the United States government shut down, a lot of the agencies that provide economic numbers aren't reporting. But there is one that reports, a private agency, and they've just reported October job cuts hit highest level in 22 years. U.S. employers cut 153,074 jobs in October, a 175% increase from a year ago, according to a new report from Challenger, Gray, and Christmas. This is the highest total for the month of October since 2003. So the worst job loss numbers reported for the past 20 years. And this is something that a lot of economists predicted, and I've talked a lot about it on this channel, a natural effect of a tariff policy. The United States is imposing tariffs on the import of products from every country now on earth, which means businesses and consumers in the United States that import those products are subject to this tax, this Trump tariff tax. When you import something into the United States now, you have to pay a tariff because Donald Trump has imposed tariffs on all imports from all countries, especially from China. And that naturally will manifest itself in the economy by causing these two things. Number one, an importing company that has to pay a tax on an import will think twice about importing that product because it's going to cost more. So it's going to think, well, I used to be able to import this from China for $10, but now there's a 50% tariff. I'll have to pay 50% of $10 to the US government. So that's going to cost me $15 now instead of $10. Maybe I won't buy it. I'll have to try and get it somewhere else. $15 is too much. Where can I get it? Oh, well, there's a place in the United States I can get it for $14. I guess I'll get it there. See? Mission accomplished. The jobs are coming back to the United States. Well, the companies just bought that product now for $14 instead of $10. That's the reason they were importing that product from China in the first place, because they could get it for $10 instead of $14 here at home or $13.50 from another country. The reason that the whole global economy was working the way it was when there was very low tariffs before this Trump trade war, because companies tried to find the best deals around the world for the products they wanted to import that they used for manufacturing or that they wanted to resell. Companies naturally looked for the best deals. Let's carry on this analogy then. Okay, they can't get that product for $10 from China anymore. They have to pay a 50% tax. They bought it locally for $14. So that's great. There's a company in the United States that's selling more of that stuff now for $14. But wait a minute. Now they bought this for $14 and it used to cost them $10. The cost of them doing business has gone up. Boy, they're going to have to cut costs somewhere because everything that they manufacture, or if they want to resell that product, it's more expensive now. We got to cut our costs somewhere. How can we cut our costs? Well, the easiest way, and the way that companies always do it, is to just stop giving their employees big raises. Maybe give them smaller raises. And maybe fire some of them. U.S. employers cut 153,074 jobs in October. Okay, well now we fired some of our employees and we lowered our costs a little bit, but we got to figure out, what do we do with this $14 product we bought? We used to sell this for $12.50 and we would make a $2.50 profit when we could get it from China, but now it's cost $14. What do we sell it for now? Well, we fired some employees, so we saved some money there. We can't sell it for $12.50 anymore. We'll sell it for $17. If we sell it for $17, we'll be just as profitable as we were before. Inflation! Prices are going up. Don't just take my word for it. Let's have a look at trading economics. United States inflation rate. And you can see that in March and April, it was heading down, getting close to that 2% target that the central banks like. 2% inflation is healthy. Anything above that is not very good. But since Trump's got elected and launched his trade war, prices have started to go up. And in September, the latest inflation report was 3% inflation in the United States. Of course, they don't report it anymore because the government shut down. Well, phew, we fired some employees and we raised our prices to $17.50. Now we're going to be just as profitable as we were before. But wait a minute, a lot of other companies are doing the same thing. I hope that doesn't affect our business, the fact that we're raising our prices and the fact that a lot of Americans are losing their jobs. Do you think that could have an effect? And that's why Xi Jinping loves American voters, because they voted for him. Donald Trump has no idea what he's doing, and the U.S. economy is heading no one knows where. But we all know where the Chinese economy is going. It's going along the trend that it's been on for the past 20 years. And I guess that's why I thought this picture was the best one to use to start this video, the dungeon. One economy is heading to the dungeon, and the other economy is just chugging along. As far as Canada is concerned, there's no detaching from the United States. I read comments in the comment section, some saying we should just stop all trade with the United States and detach ourselves from the United States. And that simply is not realistic. 80% of our trade is with the United States, but our government is going down the correct path with a goal of doubling, perhaps tripling our trade, expanding our trade with the rest of the world, trying to keep the relationship and the trade that we have with the United States as best as we can. And remember, they're being hostile to us as well. They're imposing tariffs on our exports as well. Whatever their plan is, that's what they've decided to do. But that set us on a path that truly is a pivot. We have not behaved like China has over the past 20 years. China, ready to trade with everyone in the world equally. We have been focused and joined at the hip with the United States. Unfortunately, it's been easy for us to do that. But now we have to make a concerted effort to pivot. And the goal of the government to increase and expand our trade with all countries in the rest of the world. Mark Carney meeting with many of the leaders from these Indo-Pacific countries recently, the two largest, India and China, trying to rekindle our relationships with those two big countries, the two biggest in that region. Our country has a goal now to expand and look to that market and Europe and the rest of the world as the future growth potential. It just makes sense that going forward, we just can't put all our eggs in one basket. We have to diversify. I wanted to give you a higher macro look at what's happening in the world rather than just analyze specific little numbers, tariffs on canola, tariffs on EVs, what's happening in the big picture. And it's pretty clear what's happening in the big picture. One country is being led by a government that has a focused desire to expand and trade with the rest of the world. And one country is being led by someone who, let's face it, nobody in the world knows, and he doesn't know what in the world he's doing. So leave some comments in the comment section and let me know what your perspective is. If you want to support my channel on a monthly basis, consider becoming a channel member by clicking the join button. Have a fantastic rest of your day, everyone, and I'll catch you all on the next one.